2 years before Agricola made farming and board games cool, noted designer Wolfgang Kramer offered board gamers a taste of what it's like to be a prestigious rancher in Argentina in his game Hacienda. Well, maybe not. The lovely art in the box suggests there might be some cowboys and large properties and vast herds of cattle. Mostly, though, there are tiles to place. Lots and lots of tiles. But hey, tile placing can be pretty exciting too, so let's take a closer look. Hacienda comes in a pretty standard bookshelf-style box that looks nice when stored vertically. As mentioned before, I rather like the cover art, and somehow the brown color works. The game seems understated but intriguing there on your shelf. Inside the box is an actually functional insert specifically designed to hold the game's components. Unfortunately, there's enough free space in the box that if you do actually store the box vertically, the cards and the animal tiles will escape their assigned compartments and require sorting when the game is opened. If you are going to play frequently, plastic bags will be a necessity. The board itself is nice and thick and two-sided. The design isn't anything to get excited about, but the standard Euro scoring track is easy to use and read. As mentioned before, this is a tile placing game. There are several types of tiles, but all are easy to handle and recognize. Animal tiles are about the size and shape of a nickel. They are two-sided with a different animal on each side. This has no effect on gameplay, it's just a way to cut down on the already large number of tiles in the game. In general, this is a nice idea, but in some situations, it is possible that a player will create a large enough herd of a particular animal that he will run out of the necessary type of tile. In most games, such a limitation is just part of the game, but because of the double-sided tiles, it is possible that a player can actually make a legal play if he just switches out the cow tile that has a horse on it with the cow tile that has a pig on it. This won't happen often, but since part of the game's strategy includes creating large herds of animals, it can happen, and then the game may have to stop so that each tile can be flipped over and checked. Land tiles are simply brightly colored hexagons. The bright colors make it easy to determine ownership of a stretch of land, but the rainbow of tiles on the board further distances players from any semblance of theme. Here again, the tiles are two-sided to save costs. Potentially, the same problem could arise where a player wants to play a land tile, but has to first locate a tile in his color that another player may have used. But for whatever reason, I've not actually had this happen with the land tiles. The game also includes harvest tiles, which look exactly like animal tiles except they have a picture of grain on them, water tiles in a variety of shapes and sizes, and wooden haciendas and scoring markers. Even by today's standards, it's all nice quality. In order to play your animal tiles and land tiles, you must first purchase animal cards and land cards, and pay for them with money cards. These three groups of cards are all the same size mini cards. Normally, these small cards are not well received by board gamers, but I have to admit they work just fine in Hacienda. For one thing, you start with a hand of 12 cards, but pretty rapidly get down to just a few, so you rarely have to fan them out or do any shuffling. They also have no information other than the artwork, so even with the small cards, you can take it all in just a glance. If you have the cards and tiles organized and bagged, setup should only take a few minutes. Depending on the number of players, you will remove some number of animal cards and haciendas, and you'll have to deal each player a starting hand of pesos, animal cards, and land cards, but most everything else can just be dumped into its own pile. You'll need some space for the different card stacks, but everything should fit easily on a card table, thanks in part to those small cards. The rules are very simple to explain, and the 60 to 90 minute game time suggested on the box is probably on the long side. There's definitely room for analysis paralysis, but you can do some planning ahead of time, so most players take their turns very quickly. Before I discuss gameplay in more detail, let's quickly rid anyone of any expectations they have based on the theme. You do not build anything resembling a ranch in Hacienda. You will strategically drop your tiles all over the board for a variety of different reasons. The different land types are spread all over the landscape and have no effect on your animals or your strategy. A mountain is the same as a meadow, is the same as a swamp, as long as you have the correct card. Likewise, there's no pig strategy or cattle strategy. The animals are just 4 different flavors of round tile. There is a water strategy, but unlike Through the Desert, another tile placing game, the water tiles start the game off the board. This means you get to build your herd first and then drop a water hole right in the middle for points. If only it were that easy in real life. So give Hacienda points for offering gamers a unique theme, and then take away those points for not actually connecting the theme to gameplay in any way. Long story short, if you buy or play Hacienda, you should buy or play it because you enjoy tile placement games, not because the theme sounds interesting. Now, on to the game. Hacienda is played over a series of several turns in which each player will perform 3 actions. The game continues this way until the animal card draw pile runs out and all players have had an equal number of turns. For your 3 actions, you can either buy something or place something. You may purchase an animal card, a land card, a water tile, or a hacienda. Cards cost 3 pesos when face up and 2 pesos when face down. Water and Haciendas each cost 12 pesos, and only one of each can be purchased per turn. Cards go to your hand, while Water and Haciendas immediately go to the board. Instead of making a purchase, you may place a tile. To place a land tile, discard the corresponding land card and place one of your colored tiles onto any matching land type on the board. To place an animal tile, discard the corresponding animal card and place an animal tile anywhere on the board that is adjacent to one of your land tiles or connected to a herd of the same animal that is already adjacent to one of your land tiles. If your animal tile connects to one of the 11 markets on the board, you receive pesos equal to the total number of animals in the herd plus the total number of land tiles in the chain that is adjacent to the herd. You may gain pesos for each side of the market a herd connects to, so if opponents don't move in quickly, one player can amass a large bankroll with just one herd of animals. Finally, to place a harvest tile, simply place one on any of your chains of land that does not already have a harvest tile and take pesos equal to 3 for each land tile in the chain. So gameplay is very simple, and most turns take around 30 seconds. The meat of the game is in the different ways to score points. Probably the most lucrative source of points is in connecting to different markets. For each different market your herds touch, you score points equal to the number of markets. So your first market connection scores 1 point, your second connection scores 2 points for a total of 3, your third connection scores 3 points for a total of 6. If the math sounds at all confusing, just look at the scoring summary on the player aid. You also score points for all land chains of at least 3 tiles. These score 2 points for each tile in the chain. Haciendas are placed on land chains or herds and score 1 point for each tile in the chain or the herd. Water tiles score 1 point for each land or animal tile adjacent to them. Finally, every 10 pesos is worth 1 point. It's possible for new players or very casual players to find the number of different ways to score points overwhelming, but board gamers with even a small amount of experience should find it all pretty easy to keep in mind while playing. Ultimately, all players will probably score points in a variety of ways, but it's definitely possible to favor a large land strategy or a market strategy and be victorious. While playing, players will have to consider where to place land tiles to allow for future expansion, how best to leave space for water tiles without giving points to opponents, when to sacrifice an action to block an opponent's land chain, whether to focus on one market and gain a lot of money or rapidly spread out to different markets for more points, and when to start purchasing the limited number of haciendas. Gameplay is relatively simple, but there's plenty to think about each turn, and the 3 actions are great. With 3 actions, you have enough freedom to execute big moves, such as by dropping a land tile and 2 animals to steal a market connection, or adding 3 animal tiles to surround a market, or buying the last 3 animal cards to end the game early, but not so many moves that the game bogs down while one person takes their turn. For example, here we see a difficult decision for the yellow player. He has a single land card, a meadow. Playing it next to this land chain would be worth points, since the land chain is already 3 tiles long, and would make the pig herd more valuable if he then places 2 pig cards to the herd, further surrounding the market in the middle. The first pig would earn 8 pesos, and the second would earn 9, for a strong haul for an early turn. However, the red player is close to uniting his 2 land chains, which would give him a strong place to harvest and play a hacienda. Playing the meadow on the other side of the red chain doesn't do much for yellow, but keeps red from making a massive chain and possibly dropping a water tile in the open space. Or, yellow could play the land tile in the original space, but play a horse card to connect to a new market before red blocks it off. Another consideration is that blue already has a large land chain and is likely ready to start cashing in on it. Yellow could respond to this by purchasing the face-up rocks card that blue might need to further expand and playing it here. Or he could use his 2 horse tiles to connect to a market and force blue to start playing animals or risk missing out on a big payday. A further consideration would be how to expand the pig herd in the middle. Yellow could play his 2 pig cards and go this direction to block red and connect to a new market, this direction to threaten blue, around this market to maximize his money, or in a straight line to possibly connect to another land chain and make the herd even more valuable. Or he could not play the pigs at all and spend 2 actions buying the face-up pig cards because red too has a pig herd he might want to expand. None of the choices are obviously bad or wrong, yet a serious player has a lot of room for long-term strategizing. There is one more thing to consider while playing, and that's the fact that there are 2 scoring phases. The animal cards are divided in half at the beginning of the game, and when the first stack runs out, scoring takes place, and then the game continues until the game ends and a final scoring occurs. Getting that last market connection, or adding a 3rd tile to a chain right before mid-game scoring can be huge, but there are enough opportunities to block that being in the lead at halftime can also have disadvantages, as opponents seek to shut you out. However, besides the 2 maps, the game also suggests 2 scoring variants, a fairly unusual thing for Euro games in 2005. The first variant simply eliminates the halftime scoring phase. Instead, score is kept as you go, so everything will only get scored once. I'm not sure which I prefer. The original scoring seems to reward a market rush strategy too much, but the score as you go variant slows gameplay a bit and eliminates that mid-game tension of not knowing how many more turns you have until scoring. The second variant changes a number of rules. Money for connecting to a market multiplies animals by land tiles instead of adding, allowing for bigger payoffs if tiles are placed very carefully. In addition, animal herds of 3 or more score a point per tile, and the price for haciendas and water increases to 20. In a sense, this seems to be the advanced version of Hacienda, with slightly more math and emphasis on precision tile placement, as well as the addition of a new way to score, but whether it is better or not will depend on how much time your group wants to invest in a game like this. The added options and skill might not be a selling point if you like the game for its simplicity. So, is Hacienda the tile placing game of your dreams? Well, let's try and narrow down its list of suitors. If you demand at least a little connection between theme and gameplay, then Hacienda probably isn't for you. Other than the fact that there are pictures of animals in the tiles, I can't think of a single mechanism in the game that relates to the theme, except maybe the fact that animal herds have to connect to land chains. Take the market mechanism, for instance. You would think that selling your animals at the market would be a big decision in a game like this, but you don't actually sell anything at the market. You connect your herd to one side of the market and then receive pesos, and if you then lay another tile to connect to another side, you again get pesos for all the animals you just scored. Big herds are worth more money than little herds, so that seems thematic, except you also get money for the connected land tiles, so a single cow connected to a chain of 5 land tiles creates just as much revenue as a herd of 5 cows connected to one land tile. I guess because he has so much room to roam that he's just that much tastier than those poor cows who have to share a single land tile. In short, I can't emphasize enough how little theme this game has. If you are particularly picky about components, the small cards and the double-sided tiles could possibly ruin an otherwise enjoyable gaming experience. There's just that extra little bit of fiddling around that might make you choose another game over this one. In terms of actual gameplay, the only real warning sign might be if you are bothered by the game ending being triggered by one of the players. Since the game doesn't end until the last animal card is flipped over, if you are playing by the normal scoring rules and the winner is not clear, everyone will just use the last several rounds to buy haciendas and water tiles in order to max out their points until one player is forced to end the game because he has no other way to generate points. This rush for victory points at the end of it doesn't ruin the game, but it doesn't feel as fun as the turns that preceded it, where players were trying to decide when to buy cards and when to go for points and when to raise more money. Of course, this is a problem that many Euro games suffer from, so if you've played such games in the past and dislike that aspect, you may want to reconsider Hacienda. Then who exactly should consider it? Well, if you enjoy strategic tile-laying games, then I would say Hacienda is a fine addition to the genre and compares well to Carcassonne or Through the Desert. There are multiple scoring options, opportunities to block your opponents, and always more things you want to do than actions to do them with. Is it worth getting, though, if you already own these or other tile placement games? Well, there's nothing revolutionary in the game's mechanics, even when it was released, but it doesn't feel overly familiar. The closest comparison would be Through the Desert, yet the strategies and decisions in Hacienda are very different. Perhaps the best endorsement for the game, though, is that my wife refuses to ever play Carcassonne with me, but enjoys Hacienda very much. Why is this? Well, she dislikes the limitations on what you can do in Carcassonne based on the tiles you draw, and she hates the all-or-nothing scoring system where one player can steal away all the points another player was building in a city or a road. Though Hacienda can be cutthroat with blocking, you never steal another player's points or totally shut them out from scoring on a turn. There's always something a player can do. There's something psychologically pleasing about this mechanism. Even a poor player is constantly receiving positive feedback on their turn. My 5-year-old was able to score 99 points in his first game. He lost by a lot because the game does reward skill and planning, but during the game he was constantly expanding his herds and accumulating money. This feature of Hacienda is ultimately what I believe is its strongest selling point and niche in the gaming world. It's a Euro game that rewards skillful play, but does not feel like it punishes newer casual players. This is especially true if you use the original scoring rules, since new players won't realize they are behind until the game is already over, and will feel good about their decisions while playing. And when you add in the two-sided board, the scoring variants, and a vast number of downloadable maps online, there's plenty of replayability to the game for a more experienced player. Hacienda seems to be a classic under-the-radar type of game. There's nothing about it to make it stand out. The theme is unusual and barely relevant to gameplay. Components are nice, but don't add anything to the experience. It's not short enough to be a quick filler that gets played every week, or deep enough to plan a whole evening around. The gameplay is familiar and unsurprising, yet it's a really enjoyable game with quick play, interesting decisions, interaction, and a strangely positive feeling that never makes newcomers to the hobby feel confused or overwhelmed. When I told my wife I was reviewing Hacienda, she had no idea what I was talking about, but the moment I explained the rules, she remembered how much she liked it. It's that type of game. If you like tile placement games and don't care about theme, it will rarely disappoint. but it can also sit on your shelf for months, while more brash games demand your attention. If there's room on your game shelf for a companion like that, then Hacienda may be the one for you. This has been the Board Game Matchmaker, trying to help board games find gamers to love them.